Morris says he's got a new group called Apollonia 6. You know anything about them?
No.
Mm-hmm. Tell me they real hot. Says, Billy, you gonna like these girls.
Welcome back to Nightchild Reviews and Mr. Ant's World of Prince as we continue our Prince journey, and today, Apollonia 6. One secret fact about Prince is that he had 50 hours in each and every day, or at least I assume he must have had, as he was insanely productive with his time, and never more so than in this period of the 80s. Prince was now finally setting the world alight. Purple Rain, the film, was blazing a path of success throughout the world. Purple Rain, their album, was an irresistible, unstoppable force. Prince was creating work for the time, the family, and so much more. Today, we delve into the sole album he created that became, quite simply, Apollonia 6. After the departure of Denise Matthews, known as Vanity, before the filming of Purple Rain, Prince relaunched the girl group with Patricia Cotero, soon renamed Apollonia. Whilst Apollonia was primarily interested in the acting aspect of working with Prince on Purple Rain, Apollonia became the lead figure in the three-person group, alongside Brenda Bennett, at the time married to set and lighting designer Roy Bennett, and Susan Moonsey. Indeed, it was something of a transformation for Apollonia, as Susan Rogers, Prince's engineer, noted. He brought her out to the house and asked her to go upstairs to warm up her voice. She warmed up in a quiet little voice with the Beatles' When I'm 64. That was the preparation for singing Sex Shooter. Released on the 1st of October 1984 and officially produced by our good friend, the elusive Jamie Starr, Prince wrote or co-wrote all of the 7 songs, but also credited various members of the Revolution. Before we dive into the tracks, it's worth noting 2 quick points. Firstly, just how different this album could have been when you factor in the tracks that at some point were considered for the project. Iconic songs such as Take Me With You and Manic Monday were at one point slated for release on this album, as was Velvet Kitty Cat. Various other tracks were also vaguely considered for the project, but when it became clear that Apollonia was primarily focused on the acting side to her career, many of these songs eventually made their way to other projects. Secondly, it's also worth briefly mentioning that a mini-movie exists containing 4 of the songs from the album, which revolves around the reading of Mr. Christian's will and the subsequent fallout for our trio of heroines. It's campy, fun, and whilst not officially released, certainly an interesting snapshot of the era. However, now, let's begin, and we'll start by introducing you to a certain Mr. Christian.
Happy birthday, Mr. Christian.
Happy birthday, Mr. Christian. Apollonia 6's one and only album opens with a classic piece of 80s Prince Minneapolis pop, with Happy Birthday, Mr. Christian. Prince, as he would do numerous times throughout his career, dresses up some serious issues in the subject matter, with a catchy as hell pop track with a lead line you'll be humming to yourself for hours after listening. The subject matter in question in the track is one as old as time: teenage girl infatuated with her school teacher. It's one that's been covered by other artists over the years, most memorably by The Police with Don't Stand So Close to Me. In that track it was the pupil infatuated with her teacher leading to a forbidden relationship, whereas here, in Apollonia's track, it's the pupil aware of her teacher's desires and plays on it to get top grades and get through school. It's worth mentioning, obviously, that attitudes towards this subject were not quite the same as today's, as we are dealing basically with paedophilia, and there is no way to dress that up or ignore it. But for this review, let's try if we can to view this in a 1980s perspective if possible, whilst also keeping in mind that we obviously do not condone such behaviour in the strongest possible way. We simply have to put this track in context to the times. Back in the 1980s, even when I was at high school, there were many girls who fancied a teacher or who had older boyfriends outside of school who would often pick them up after school in their cars. It was so commonplace that nobody seemed to bat an eyelid at it. God, even here in the UK, former Rolling Stone bassist Bill Wyman, who was 47 at the time, was having a relationship with a 13-year-old girl, Mandy Smith. Mandy Smith, who was a teenage model at the time, with the relationship then going public when she reached 16, the legal age of consent in the UK. And then they married when she was just 17. As I said, different attitudes and times indeed. Anyway, so back to the music. That is, after all, why we are all here. Happy Birthday, Mr. Christian sees Apollonia on lead vocals, with Brenda Bennett and Susan Moonsey also on vocals. Although it's thought that although Susan is credited, she actually didn't sing on the track. Susanna Melvoin and Brown Mark are also on backing vocals, with Prince playing all the instruments. Lyrically, we hear about how this girl was a fast developer and fast in general, and in exchange for top grades, she would teach her teacher a thing or two in the love department. Late in my early teenage, I was considered fast. While some of the girls were failing, I passed in every class. Our principal's name was Christian, and I played upon his fears. In exchange for my diploma, I loved him through the years. Later on, in an almost throwaway line, we hear what often so happens in these relationships, that the girl has had his baby. We had our love down to an art form. Each act was like scenes from a play. With every lesson I gave him, Mr. Christian gave me an A. I graduated with honours, a riddle to everyone. Everyone except Christian, Mr. Christian, and I, and our son. Musically, this is another synth-heavy offering with a reoccurring wah 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 effect backing up each verse, and later on we get a simulated horn section after a call-out for horns by Apollonia. The backing vocals sit well behind everything, and the harmonies of Brenda and Susanna are a highlight. The track closes out with a rendition of Happy Birthday to You by Apollonia, followed by the sound of gunfire, not the present Mr. Christian was expecting, bringing to a close a strange but catchy and controversial album opener.
I'm a sex shooter, shooting love in your direction.
Undoubtedly the monster hit of this album. This track takes centre stage in the Purple Rain movie, and more recently we were treated to Prince's original version on the Originals project, which was fascinating and well worth seeking out. The single actually features a longer version of the track stretching out to 6 minutes 45, and has become in many ways indicative of Prince's classic mid-80s. The track explodes out of the gate with a rising, swelling and undulating pulse of synth flex before the main earworm groove kicks in. The synth motif is instantly memorable and has the same sense of fun and unbridled energy as the previous classic from Vanity 6's Nasty Girl. The lyrics themselves are confidence and playfulness personified. The content, whilst ostensibly sexual, is much more saucy than scandalous and circles the idea of Apollonia and her two cohorts being the sex shooters, shooting love in your direction. Mentions of kiss the gun and I need you to pull my trigger baby, and even I'm your bomb ready to explode, reinforce the notion of pent-up erotic abandon and provocative desire. It's truly one of those tracks where you just can't help but feel upbeat and carried along with the vibe. Apollonia's voice isn't a powerhouse that pierces the sky, but it doesn't need to be to carry this song perfectly. She undeniably serves the song with the required amount of verve and toying campness. Look out for some great little keyboard notes at around 1 minute 40, Apollonia's little vocal at 1 minute 50, and the whoa whoa refrain. The little breakdown which begins "No girl's body can compete with mine" and ends with Apollonia's voice breaking a little is pretty cool, and there's a little nod perhaps to Vanity with the line "All the nasty people sing it." The extended long version breaks down at 4 minutes to a nice keyboard solo and some vocal noodling by the group, which moves from speaker to speaker and allows Brenda some more prominence. Overall, the centre point of the album, and one that helped propel the project from the launchpad of Purple Rain.
7:30 and there's still no sign of my baby's blue limousine.
The album's third track, Blue Limousine, marks the end of a fairly strong opening to this album. Those 3 tracks made a pretty solid start to proceedings, which sadly begins to fall away a little bit after this. Blue Limousine is a real airy and breezy synth rock track, and its imagery brings to mind those sprawling American cities on a hot summer's night when the sky is illuminated by the endless jungle of office blocks towering above the city streets, where somewhere this blue limousine is cruising the city streets as its owner is out on the prowl. The basic premise of the track is about an unfaithful lover who likes them pretty and likes them in their lingerie, a garment that was a staple in many songs by the time and Vanity before this. Once again, the track is synth heavy with another strong lead line underpinned with synth chords, bass and a driving drum beat. Brenda Bennett has the lead vocal on this track and does a fine job, with backing vocals provided by Susanna Melvoin and Jill Jones, with Prince playing all the instruments. Although written by Prince, the track was credited to Apollonia for the words and Sheila E for the music. The track was released as the second and final single from the album, but failed to chart anywhere. Lyrically, we hear the account from Brenda, who is waiting in vain for her baby to turn up in his blue limousine, knowing full well what he's up to. 7:31, I planned for him to spend the night. Could have had some fun, but pretty men, they never treat you right. They talk so dirty, they get you all worked up inside. It's your car, but everybody else always gets to drive. 7:31, and there's still no sign of my baby's blue limousine. Prince used cars a few times as imagery in his writing, Little Red Corvette the most obvious, but also with the time, with Morris Day referring to the stick in his ride is one analogy. But also, what is interesting here is that Prince, as we know, found it hard to stick with just one woman during this period, be it Susan Moonsey, Vanity, then Susanna Melvoin. So was he drawing on his own experiences with how he treated his women at that time? He's got a white one, he's got a yellow one, he's got a black one with a body obscene. Still no sign of my baby's blue limousine. The last couple of minutes of the track sees the girls doing some spoken vocals as we hear some synth runs combined with a pounding drum pattern. He likes them pretty, he likes big titties, he likes them in their lingerie. Still no sign of my baby's blue limousine. This track just breezes along and at 6 minutes 24 never manages to outstay its welcome. It's a classic 80s sounding synth rock jam designed to be listened to at obscene decibels whilst cruising the city streets, one hand on the wheel with the window down and the wind in your hair. It's 7:32 and there's still no sign of my baby's blue limousine.
If I were a million miles away, would you visit me?
With musical credits to Lisa Coleman and with lead vocals by Brenda Bennett, usually considered to be the strongest singer of the group, this track is a pleading paean declaring the endless lengths a lover would go to the object of her love. Musically, it has a great bass run throughout, and Brenda's somewhat lower register give it a great effect when blended with the backing vocals. If you love me, would you eat a poison apple? How much would you take? And would you be burned at the stake? Where's the dawn? Darkness is death. Don't die. Live forever. Say you love him. Brenda's tough girl persona provides a great contrast with the yearning devotion of the track, and whilst the sentiment is not necessarily a wholly unique idea, the vocals lift it up, especially as Brenda gets into a stride at around 2 minutes 10 with a striding performance that shows the powerhouse she could be. Brenda's vocals then run a back and forth between her declarations and some more musically focused sections, which give the track time to stretch its legs and for Brenda to add her vocal flourishes. Bass and drum rolls come together for some old school funk from 4 minutes on to ride out the groove.
Ooh, shoo, chihuahua, I wanted you, ooh, I'm the one that you, ooh, I'm the one that you want.
Ooh She Chihuahua. This track has a distinction of probably having the worst segue ever committed to tape. It's so bad it's toe curling, and I'm being polite. It starts with Apollonia saying her prayers and asking God to bless Brenda, Susan, and her rabbit Smokey. Oh, and all the people on Neptune. All set to a backdrop of frogs croaking, birds singing, and crickets chirping. Maybe it's those environmental records again. The trouble with this segue is the terrible voice acting, including some of the worst false laughter you've ever heard, and trying to be funny, which just comes over so wooden that I get a splinter each time I hear it. It's that bad. It's the men from Neptune. Honestly, what were they thinking? And the yay the girls give when Brenda says they're going out to play is just, oh, well, you get the point. Anyway, on to the actual track. Ooh She Chihuahua reminds me a little bit of Makeup from Vanity Six's album, with a driving, repetitive synth and drum pattern. Susan Moonsey is on lead vocals here, and also had a bit of a rap part too. Apollonia, Brenda and Jill Jones provide the backing vocals. Lyrically, this is about a woman who knows what she's got and what she wants and how to get it. I got a shape like a bottle of Coca-Cola. I got a built-in attitude like you've never seen. I dance to the beat of a clock. Come on baby, let's rock. Ooh She Chihuahua. The track then slows down on Susan's request as she begins her rap. My name is Susan and I'm Aquarius. I'll make you happy if you give me candy. It ain't funny. I'm sweet as honey. and I'm guaranteed to please. The next line seems to genuinely make her laugh as she says, "My name is Susan and I'm an oozin'." She lets out a really cute little giggle at that line. There isn't that much more to proceedings, and overall, Ooh Shee Shee Wah Wah is a fun, driving rock synth track which doesn't take itself too seriously. The slowing down part gives some interest, and there's some extra cool synth stabs during Susan's rap. It's just a shame you have to endure the pain of the segue to get to the music.
Some kind of lover, and you're mine, all mine, you're some.
This track begins with Brenda being teased and mocked while making a phone call by Apollonia and Susan, whilst a dreamlike effect swirls in the background. Drums then pound in with a sassy funk bass, and Brenda growls her lines. "Baby, I need you so bad. Best damn love I've ever had. You are the sunshine that lights up my day and the night time. You're the only way." The chorus of Some Kind of Lover scales up and then eases up for a moment before Brenda starts to push her voice a little more. There is a more overt sexuality here, with Brenda moaning and groaning provocatively before a spoken outro details her first experience with her lover. The final section is almost orgasmic, and Brenda blushes her final words, "I'm embarrassed." It's a fun little track, possibly not one of the most memorable hooks, but Brenda clearly proves her singer bona fides.
Me gusta. Dame un beso, Oliver. Sí está bien.
In a Spanish Villa. The final track on Apollonia 6's one and only album has one distinction. It was the first time the Spanish language was used on a Prince recording. The track was written by Prince and features a spoken vocal by Apollonia, backed up with Prince on acoustic and electric guitars. It was included as the B-side to the album's first single, Sex Shooter. There isn't really a whole lot to say about this track. Apollonia appears to be speaking to some guy she's just met called Oliver, talking about being lonely and waiting for the man of her dreams to come for her before asking Oliver to kiss her on the lips, then bidding him goodbye. There is some cool guitar noodling by Prince, probably the highlight of the track, and the track probably would have been much better off as an instrumental segue. And that's really all there is to it, and as the album's final track, it closes out proceedings with rather a whimper than a bang.
Despite all the tracks that were omitted from this album, it's an interesting ride, from the enchanting and intriguing Happy Birthday Mr. Christian, the vibrant Sex Shooter, and the catchy funk hook of Blue Limousine. Apollonia 6 is an interesting capsule of Prince's relentless creativity and ability to write for women, something that would continue over the years, resulting in a series of hits for female artists. Prince was always intently determined, after seeing the film The Idolmaker, to, alongside his meteoric rise to stardom, to also be the unseen power behind the throne, whether in the guise of Jamie Starr, Alexander Nevermind, or the Paisley Park moniker. In many ways, Apollonia laid a new kind of template for a sassy, sexually confident girl group who pushed the envelope of the time, and indeed set the blueprint for years to come. Apollonia 6 is an album that one doesn't need to genuflect over too seriously. It's light, fun, sassy, confident, and sonically plush. Brenda, Apollonia and Susan share the vocal responsibilities, and despite Prince being the guiding musical and lyrical force, they managed to stamp some of their own identity onto the album, and there was a certain camaraderie between these women that works in the mini-movie and the album, and of course the Purple Rain film itself. This was destined to be Apollonia 6's only album, and the group all went off to do their own things, but some part of me still likes to think of the group dancing their hearts out and existing in some alternate 80s world. Here's to you, Apollonia 6. Thank you.